Hey, good afternoon. Happy Saturday to you, and welcome into the Baseline View. That is the PowerMizzou.com pregame show that we do before every Missouri basketball game. We'll be with you for an hour, leading you right up to tip-off of Missouri and South Carolina at 1 o'clock Central Time on ESPN 2. I could actually save you guys about 58 minutes. Whatever I said on Tuesday before the Georgia game, just say it again. But louder and more emphatically. This is not a game that Missouri can lose. This season, look, it's a lot better than people feel like it is right now. This team is not as good as we thought it was 2 Saturdays ago when it was coming off a win over Alabama and ranked number 10 in the country. It is not nearly as bad as a lot of people think it is right now, coming off a third straight loss. But this season has lost a lot of momentum. 2 weeks ago on the postgame show, we were talking about things like, can they win the SEC? Is the ceiling a 2 seed or a 3 seed? Can they win out? All that. Now we've got people in, it's the minority, but the minority in sports fandom is loud, convinced that Missouri's not going to make the NCAA tournament. Let's start here. That's false. Unless it's possible, if the wheels totally fall off, Missouri could still miss the NCAA tournament. If it loses today at South Carolina, we're probably a lot more seriously entertaining that discussion than we are right now. But all Missouri has to do is beat bad teams to get into the NCAA tournament. Now, whether that's as a 6 seed, which is where Joe Lunardi has them as of today, or an 8 seed or a 10 seed, who knows? But all they've got to do is beat bad teams. South Carolina is one of those bad teams. It comes into this game 5-10, 3-8 in SEC play, no rhythm whatsoever, thanks to COVID all season long. Missing Jermaine Cuisinart, who averages 9.7 points, 3.6 assists, and 3 rebounds a game. This is a bad team. Missouri gets Jeremiah Tillman back. Konzo Martin confirmed that yesterday, said he'll play today. This is definitely a matchup of 2 of the SEC's coldest teams. Missouri's lost 3 in a row. South Carolina's been worse. They've lost 4 in a row by an average of 11.5 points a game. Missouri won the first matchup 81-70 in the Columbia that's in Missouri. They play today in the Columbia that is in South Carolina. But fans tend to be, and I don't say this to make anybody feel bad. It's what fandom is. But you get too high on the highs and too low on the lows. Fandom has no emotional level, right? It's up here and then it's down here. And this is a 30-game season by the end of it. There are going to be ups and downs. Missouri definitely in a huge valley right now. Huge valley. But you have to judge the entire season. Just because they've lost 3 in a row does not erase the 7-0 non-conference. It does not erase the 6 quad 1 wins. They now have 6 because Wichita State is up into a quad 1 territory. It does not erase beating Oregon and Illinois and Alabama. It doesn't erase all that stuff. So my point is we are in a better place than you feel like right now. But today is big. I don't think there's any question about that. As Cam Cameron says, and please feel free, questions and comments and all of that in the chat. We welcome that, and we will certainly get to those as we go on if I can get them to a size where you don't have to have a magnifying glass to read them. That seems a little bit better. Cam asks, a loss today has to trigger serious panic time. No. Yeah, I think you'd be very near panic if Missouri lost this game. Maybe not all the way there. I mean, a lot of people would be all the way there. But much closer. I said before Tuesday, not super concerned. But if Missouri loses at Georgia, I will start to at least listen to the idea that the wheels are coming off. And Missouri lost at Georgia in what I would say was shocking fashion, except for the fact that we've seen it happen before. So I don't know how shocked you can be at something that has now happened 3 or 4 times this season. But a loss today, yeah, the wheels would be very wobbly. I wouldn't say off because things can happen, right? But definitely the wheels would be very wobbly. Missouri, even if it wins this game, Missouri is going to be out of the top 25 next week. I'm virtually certain of that. And that's not the most, I guess, realistic or accurate way to judge what a team is. But the polls have thought more highly of Missouri than the metrics all season long. And they are going to be out of the polls next week. I mean, I just don't see any way they aren't. You don't lose to Georgia, which I believe came in like number 98 or something like that in the net. You don't lose that game and stay ranked when you're already number 20. I mean, I'm looking at KenPom right now. Missouri is down to 49th. So here's what that means, guys, actually, is if Missouri loses this game, it would fall out of the top 50 in KenPom. It would probably fall out of the top 50 in the net. Let me look up those rankings for you real quick. Okay, I'm looking at the net right now. Missouri is 43rd. So if Missouri were to lose this game, it is potentially outside the top 50. What that means is it wouldn't even be a quad 1 win for South Carolina. It would be like a good win, but not a great win. Actually, I think it's top 30 at home, so I don't think it's a quad 1 win, even if South Carolina does win this game, because this game's at home. It's the top 30 in the net that qualifies a quad 1. But the point is, yes, this is big. If for nothing else than to kind of stabilize things and convince people that it is going not completely in the wrong direction, because like T-Rise says, and welcome T-Rise, appreciate having you here, man. And you've been with us for a lot of the shows throughout football and basketball season. Appreciate everybody that joins us regularly, and also people who might be tuning in for the first time. Let other people know what we're doing. I think this has gone pretty well throughout basketball season, but more eyeballs is always better. You can do that by hitting the like button. You can do it by subscribing, by leaving comments, or just by telling your friends, hey, you're a basketball fan, check this out. Like, it's a free show. You don't have to subscribe to Power Mizzou to watch it. We certainly encourage you to, but if you don't, just come hang out with us for a little while on game day before and after the game. But like T-Rice says, a lot of people are already there, and he's talking about panic mode, and they are. So here's what I found over 17 and a half years now of doing what I do. The internet is not the best representation of what a fan base thinks. Because, first of all, the people who are on the internet as sports fans, whether it's on our sites, on Twitter, whatever, generally are a little more diehard and a little more emotional and up and down than your average fan. And also, nobody goes to the internet to say, hey, I think this is going well. Hey, I like this. Great job. Great win. Coach is doing a good job. Nobody really does that. They just watch the game and go, oh, hey, I'm happy with that. The people that post on the internet are the ones who see things that they want improved, that think things need to be better, that are unhappy with things. It's the same as, the internet is basically what sports talk radio was 25 years ago, right? That people didn't call into the local sports show and say, hey, I'm really happy. Everything's going well. We're getting a lot of clutch hitting. Pitching staff's looking good. Managers made the right moves. No, they call in and say, I'm really mad at the guy that put his closer in the ninth inning and blew the game when the starter was pitching well. That's the nature of what we do, is the comments that we get tend to be overly negative. So, yes, T-Rise, there are a lot of people that are already at panic mode as far as Missouri fans go. But I think those people are more the people who are likely to voice their opinions so that you will hear them. And the result is you think it's a higher percentage of the fans than it actually is. There's a middle ground here, right? And middle ground, I understand this is not where sports fans live. But the middle ground is this. this team is not as good as we hoped and thought maybe it was 2 weeks ago. That is now inarguable because teams that are that good do not lose 3 straight games, including at least one to a bad team. And, the other 2 to decent teams, solid teams, probably NCAA tournament teams, but not great teams. So they're not that. But they also are an NCAA tournament team, and they were under 500 the last 2 years. Just 4 years ago, they were in the class picture as the worst Power 5 program or the worst high major program in the country. They might not have been the worst high major program, but they were in the class picture. There is no question about that. So, I think we do have to keep all of these things in perspective. Adam is wanting to know, is it me or does Pinson play better at home? Every away game he is disinterested and seems disinterested and seems to shoot better at home. Well, I'm going to check that out for you real quick, actually, Adam, because I have the ability to do that if my internet will call up the official page here real quickly. It, for some reason, is just spinning and not wanting to do that. But if I get to the stats eventually, I will certainly let you know about that. I think there's a couple things in play with Pinson. First of all, it's incredibly frustrating, I think, for not only for fans, but for the coaches, that you're dealing with a junior who's now played 100 games, and you still kind of have to wonder, hey, is he going to be there? Is he going to be into this game tonight? That you shouldn't have to. Iconzo has said this at times over his career, not about Pinson, but in general. Like, look, the minimum we expect is effort. You shouldn't get credit for playing hard, because that's why we're here. And so there are nights where it is very easy to watch Pinson play and think it doesn't look great. But the question is about home versus road. So let me run through the home games. Against Oral Roberts, 17 points in 21 minutes. Against Liberty, 12 points in 24 minutes. Against Illinois, 17 and 31. Against Bradley, 15 and 25. Against Tennessee, 11 and 22. Against South Carolina, just 2 points in 19 minutes. He was 0 for 3 from the floor in that game. Against TCU, 36 in 34 minutes. Against Kentucky, 14 and 31. Against Alabama, 9 and 24. And then against Arkansas, 23 in 30. In the road game, or the games away from Mizzou Arena, he had 22 against Oregon. Only 3 against Wichita State. Had 23 at Arkansas. Had 27 at Tennessee. Had 11 at Georgia. So let's see. Double-figure games. Pinson on the road has Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Oregon. So that's 5. At home, he has Oral Roberts, Liberty, Illinois, Bradley, Tennessee. I'm going here. Kentucky and Arkansas. So he has 7 double-digit games at home and 5 on the road. Given that Missouri has played more home games, I think the perception that he plays better at home is maybe a little bit off. He certainly is not consistent. That's the biggest issue with Pinson, right? You just don't know what you're going to get. And you can say that about a lot of guys, but Drew Smith, you have a pretty good idea. I mean, he scored in double figures 10 straight games, and then he didn't last game, but he had 9. Like, you pretty much know what you're going to get out of Drew Smith. There's a floor. Jeremiah Tillman, for the most part this season, you've pretty much known what you were going to get out of him. But Pinson, you just don't. I mean, the wild swings. This is a guy who he scored 36 this year in one game, and in another game he scored 3. In another game he scored 2. So Pinson has scored 36 points, and he's had 2 games in which he scored 3 points or fewer. That is volatility like that is crazy. He's had, let's see, I think 7 games in single digits. which is that's tough, man. That's tough to overcome as a coach. I mean, you have to put him out there, but there are times where Drew Buggs, who is zero threat to score, hasn't even threatened double figures this year, is actually like I think the offense at times looks better with Buggs running the show, which is pretty crazy to say. Like T-Ry said, yeah, he's equally inconsistent at home or on the road. Tyler, who has been with us a lot during the basketball season, says Mizzou wins easy today and X player plays great. Fill in the blank for the player that makes you feel best about this team after a win. I think you hit it when you filled in the blank with X. I think it's Pinson. I think more than any other player, he is indicative of what Missouri's going to do. I mean, there are exceptions. Like the Arkansas loss, he had 23. But the Ole Miss loss, he scored 6 points. The Georgia loss, he scored 11, but he was not good in that game. The Auburn loss, 7 points in 23 minutes. The Mississippi State loss, 13 points on 4 of 13 shooting. The Tennessee loss I don't even count because everybody was so bad in that game. Now let's look at Drew Smith and see what he's done in Missouri's losses. You have to go a while to get to one. First Tennessee game, like I said, doesn't even matter, 8 and 28. The Mississippi State loss, he had 11 points in 37 minutes. He was okay in that game, which is about the best you can say about anybody, I think. The Auburn loss, he had 21. The Ole Miss loss, he had 17. The Arkansas loss, he had 15. So I think Drew, again, is kind of consistent. He's not as much a volatile kind of barometer. In other words, he has played well, and Missouri has still lost a game. Now let's look at Jeremiah Tillman and see about him. Mississippi State, he had 16 and 6 in 29 minutes. That's a good game. The Auburn game, he had 21 and 10. That's a good game. Ole Miss, the second time, 6 and 6 in 25 minutes. So he didn't play well in that game. But, other than that, I mean, Missouri has won when he has played well, and Missouri has still lost some games. So I think it's Xavier Pinson. I think he's the guy. If you get him playing well, Missouri looks pretty good. If you don't, they can look pretty bad. And you can point to stats with Javon Pickett when he's in double figures and Missouri's really good and all that. But Javon Pickett is not what determines where this team's going to go. That's Pinson, Drew Smith, and Tillman. And I think that the X factor in those is Xavier Pinson. All right, Cam is asking a non-Mizzou question. If you had to pick Gonzaga or Baylor to win the whole thing or the field, who would you take? I'd take Gonzaga or Baylor. I mean, if you're giving me both those teams and then you take everybody else, I'll take those teams because I would be somewhat surprised if one of them doesn't win it. I mean, Michigan could, Ohio State could. There are other teams that could. But the odds are the two best teams, one of them's probably going to win it. Now, if you said take one of those teams or the field, I'd probably take the field because that would level it out. But if I get both of those teams, I'm taking Gonzaga or Baylor. And I say that as somebody who honestly hasn't watched much of either one this year because I mostly haven't watched college basketball outside of what I cover, which is, I think, a problem that the sport has, which we could talk about at some other time. Want to let you guys know in about 10 minutes, we're going to call up Mitchell Forty, kind of get his thoughts on this matchup, this team, all that. We will lead you right up to tip-off, which is at 1 o'clock on ESPN2. That is Central Time. If you are in a different time zone than Central and watching this, thank you. Appreciate you joining us, but you can figure out what time it is in your time zone. 39 minutes until tip-off. So whatever time it is now, just add 39 minutes. That's when the game starts. We will lead you up to tip-off. Then I will sign off here. I'll go watch the game. Mitchell will watch the game and keep you covered on the site. And then I will be back here afterwards, after Konzo's post-game press conference. We'll run that, and we'll talk to you and take your calls on the Burger Smokehouse Dance Class post-game show. Want to get back to some of your comments before we do check in with Mitchell 40, and Aaron Johnson says, would be cautious in thinking Tillman is all that's missing in getting us back on track. Wonder if his head will be in the game. Yeah, look, I mean, getting Tillman helps, right? There's no question. He's a good player. He's been pretty consistent most of the year. You do wonder a little bit where his head's going to be at. He's missed 2 straight games, death of a family member, all that. You never know where he's going to be. But also just they lost to Georgia. I mean, yes, Jeremiah Tillman wasn't there, but I'm not going to let it just slide with just, they were missing Tillman. And I know Konzo has said, when we have all our pieces, we're as good as anybody in the country, which we can discuss that. They might be as good as anybody in the SEC, probably not as good as anybody in the country. He said, but we have to have all our pieces. And that is, again, gets into the discussion we've had so many times. Losing one guy shouldn't mean you can't beat Georgia. It just shouldn't. No one guy should be that important, unless maybe if you're talking about like a Kevin Durant, that level, or if you're Murray State and John Morant is out, then yeah, that's one thing. But your roster should be able to withstand a guy missing a couple games. And if Missouri's can't, that's a bigger statement, I think, about the roster as a whole than it is about how any individual player is as a player or how important he might be. Michael Johnston says, I'd really like to see Kobe get the ball down low more and be aggressive with his size. He should be bullying guys down low. I agree with you, Michael. I mean, when you've got Tillman out there, the biggest guy on the defense is going to be defending Jeremiah. So Kobe might be facing a guy that's similar in size, right? There's a lot of teams that can play 2 guys that are 6'7", 6'8", or bigger. So he might be facing a guy his size. He might even be facing a guy who's as strong as he is. But I think he can go down low and score. He takes way too many jump shots for my taste, especially way too many three-point shots. I mean, Kobe on the season has taken 120 field goal attempts. 47 of them have been from three-point range. That means 73 have been from two-point range. Approximately 40% of his shots are from three-point range. He is shooting 21% from three-point range. That means inside the arc, he is 42 of 73, which quick math tells me that's somewhere around 58%. So 21% from 3, 58% from 2. Let's figure out where Kobe Brown should shoot the ball. Now, if he's going to be a guy that posts up and does that, he has to be better than a 55% free throw shooter, which he has been so far. But I agree with you. I think they could work through him down low a little bit more. They did that against Georgia on Tuesday night. Now, they did it out of necessity because Tillman wasn't there. But maybe in doing so, they found something that they can go to a little bit more often. Sorry, I'm trying to fix my camera here. It's wanting to continuously point in the wrong direction, and I can't get it figured out. So give me just a minute. Stick with me. Hope I don't give you vertigo. There we go. So, yeah, Kobe Brown down low. I agree. I would like to see that a little bit more. I think he has a game that shows you he's capable of that. And again, he's not going to get 21 every night. Georgia's a smaller team. So I don't know that he can do that against everybody in the SEC, but there are nights he'll be able to do it. And again, he's a 20% three-point shooter and a 58% two-point shooter. Let's figure out what the strengths are. And I know that's one of the complaints that a lot of Missouri fans have had all season long is, why are you doing the things you're the worst at? There's a reason Kobe Brown and Mitchell Smith, and even to a little bit lesser extent Javon Pickett and Xavier Pinson, are open out there because they're not guys who have consistently knocked them down. All right. T-Rise, I think this is about Pinson. Would be interesting to compare minutes in the games Pinson has played well and the games he hasn't. T-Rise, correct me if you're talking about somebody other than X. But, yeah, I mean, I think it kind of follows that he's probably played more minutes when he's playing well, right? The fewest minutes Pinson has played all season is 19. So he's playing in most games. Uh, you know, a good amount. I mean, his season low is 19. That has happened only twice. 21 against Oral Roberts, that game was in hand. 22 against Tennessee, that game was over. It didn't really matter. 23 against Georgia, which I think was deserved because he wasn't playing well. So I think his minutes have been relatively consistent. He's gotten himself in some foul trouble in a few games. Season high was 34 against TCU. I mean, yeah, you could argue maybe a few more minutes, but I think the quick hook has gone away a little bit more this year. I agree with that point coming into this year, but I'm not sure it's been true this year. Okay, so we'll get to. I see all these questions, and we're going to get to a couple of them. I'm going to hold on until we get in touch with Mitchell Forty in a couple of minutes. Adam Schlittler is asking if Mania is out for South Carolina. I do not yet know that. I haven't seen it on Twitter yet. Justin Mania, and the stat broadcast page is not yet up showing starting lineups. So I can't tell you for sure if Justin Mania is going to play. We do know that that Jermaine Cuisinart is out for South Carolina. Mania could be, and if he is, I mean, Cuisinart was averaging 7.3 points and 9.3 points and I think about 4.5 rebounds a game. And Justin Mania he's a pretty versatile dude who was averaging 8.1 points and 6.9 rebounds. So, I mean, if those two are both out, you're talking about 18 points, 10 rebounds, and 5.5 assists a game, 2 steals, a block. I mean, that's 2 of their top 4 players if he's out. And you're talking about a team that already, even with those guys, honestly, hasn't been very good, would get significantly worse if they are out. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to call up Mitchell Forty, and we are going to make this a 2-man operation, at least for a few minutes before we get going. And there's Mitch. What's up, man? How you doing?
Not too much. I'm doing well.
So, yeah, I don't know, half hour away. Exciting game. I mean, a lot of buzz for this one. I feel like we have
Right. I think
gone
the two
so.
teams are coming in on a combined 7-game losing streak.
Yeah, 2 of the coldest teams in the SEC, and we have gone so quickly from, talking about, hey, can this team win the SEC to there's not much buzz for this team right now. I mean, they if for nothing else, they need to get a win to kind of get people excited again.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you can't. I mean, that's not a shot at the fans saying
Right.
there should be a ton of buzz around this team. They've not been very good lately. So, yeah, I think they just need to get some mojo back and I mean, this would be worse than losing to Georgia. South Carolina's they're 5-10. They've lost 4 in a row, and they're without at least one starter, and Justin Mania might not play either. So.
Right. Yeah, we were just talking about that. Maybe 2 starters. I mean, there are reasons for it for South Carolina, but it's been basically a lost season from day one. And if you lose a 4th straight, I mean, we could talk about the wheels starting to loosen after Tuesday night, but we can talk about them coming off if they lose this game. And so what I intentionally did is kind of hold a few of the viewer questions and comments for when you come on. And I want to start with Mr. Wonderful, who, hey, good, excellent screen name there. But because you wrote about this earlier this week, he asked, why can't we hold a lead going into the final minutes? So I wanted to kind of let you take a shot at that one, because I know you kind of looked at the 4 games in which Missouri has really collapsed.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, each game has been different. The Mississippi State game was different than the Alabama game, different than the Ole Miss game. The Ole Miss game was a lot more effort. That was probably early issues were earlier in the second half. The Alabama game, I think was Alabama getting hot like it can, and Missouri kind of panicking and committing some turnovers. But the common themes in my mind have been, it's not this team getting a lead and then relaxing. I think it's when the other team starts to get momentum, Missouri's offense tends to tighten up. We see, quick shots, bad shots, low percentage shots that lead to long rebounds, and we see live ball turnovers, and that just kind of exacerbates the issue because that leads to points on the other end. And certainly there's been some some defense. I mean, the defense has not been amazing lately, but I do think Missouri's half court defense is not terrible. It's just that they've given other teams a lot of opportunities to get down the floor and score quickly, which obviously is how you get momentum and keep momentum.
And also, like, it's not hard to figure out. Missouri basically has three guys that are gonna kind of determine how this thing goes. It's Tillman,
right,
Drew Smith, and Pinson. And I mean,
yeah,
in those stretches, they've come when Drew Smith and Pinson have been bad. Like, no big secret.
right.
When your good players play poorly, you probably play poorly as a team.
Right, and Tillman. I mean, Tillman. I think I don't remember for sure, but he may have been fine in that Mississippi State game. That was in the stretch where he was playing pretty well. But late against Alabama, he didn't. I don't think. I mean, he hardly even got the ball. He didn't do much of anything. He was a non-factor in the second half against Ole Miss, and then obviously wasn't on the court the past couple games. So all three of those guys have not really played particularly well during these stretches, and so it's not a big surprise. Like they're Missouri's three best players and three most important players by far.
Yeah, so Michael Johnston is asking if Parker Brown should get even more playing time with Tillman coming back. And, I mean, my gut reaction to this is no. I think Parker is a guy that, he's shown in spots. I mean, he has some specific skills that as a 10 to 15 minutes a game guy, I think can be very useful on a good team. If you start playing him 25 minutes every night, I think you're going to start to see flaws that maybe some people either haven't seen yet because he hasn't been out there enough, or just don't want to acknowledge because they tend to root for the underdog and the walk-on a little bit more. I think if you put Parker out there more, you're going to expose some flaws that are there.
I tend to agree. I think Parker Brown can be used kind of as a matchup piece, where Jeremiah Tillman's your starting center, obviously, and Mitchell Smith is going to spell him. But I think there are some games where, like, you need two bigs down there, like the Kentucky game. Kentucky's got a really good rebounding team. It's got some big guys. Having Tillman and Mitchell Smith on the floor at the same time was really important. You're going to have other games where you're playing teams that like to go 5 out or something like that, where Parker Brown can match up with them better. Like Georgia, I thought he actually matched up. That was a good matchup for him because he's not. He doesn't have to defend like an elite back to the basket scorer or a really strong rebounder or anything like that. So I think there are certain games where you could see him play, like you said, 15 minutes. There's probably some games where he's going to play like 0 to 5. And that's just how it's going to be while Tillman's here and Mitchell Smith are here for the rest of this season.
Right. And I think if Parker's getting more minutes, it's not Tillman that's losing minutes. It's probably Mitchell Smith, right? Because if you're giving Tillman's minutes to Brown, I mean, you're playing with Parker Brown and Mitchell Smith. That's not maximizing what your team can do.
Agreed. Yeah. No, I think, there's certain games where Mitchell Smith's going to play, the backup 5 and some 4. And then there are certain games where that's going to go more to Parker Brown, I think. Yeah. But it's not going to come at the expense of Tillman.
All right. So T-Rise says, I know you've argued against this, but is it time to get Watson some of Mark Smith's minutes? I actually argued for it after I guess it would have been the Ole Miss game. I actually said, I think it was the Arkansas game where Watson played 26 minutes and made 3 threes. I said, I think he's earned more minutes. But at this point, I don't think it matters what anybody argues because we found out the answer on Tuesday night against Georgia. Torrance Watson played 6 minutes. He isn't going to play much more. I mean, he just isn't.
Yeah. No, I mean, his playing time against Arkansas didn't come at the expense of Mark Smith. It came because Javon Pickett was hurt, Kobe Brown was hurt, and Tillman obviously that didn't have a lot to do with it. But yeah, I think it was more because he was taking what Pickett was doing, playing Pickett's role. So yeah, I mean, like, I actually agree. Like, I would like, and I've said this before. I said this, I think, on Tuesday or Wednesday this past week. Like, I wouldn't mind, you put Mark Smith out there at his kind of wing shooting guard wing spot for a few minutes. You put Torrance Watson out there for a few minutes because with both of those guys, you can kind of tell if one of them hits a shot early, they'll probably hit some more. If not, I don't know, I guess you go back to Mark Smith. I don't know, but you kind of see who has the hot hand and ride it because, I do think, they're kind of streaky shooters. But yeah, you're right. I think it's immaterial at this point. I mean, Mark Smith, played a lot more and played pretty well actually on Tuesday.
Yeah, he
So
did.
I would imagine he's going to continue to get the bulk of the minutes at that spot.
Yeah, I think Mark Smith was 4 of 8. He was one of the few guys that made half his shots. He had 7 rebounds,
Yeah.
So yeah, good game for Mark on Tuesday night, and maybe the kind of game that can get him going. All right, Cam saying, I know we don't want to look past this season, but there's no chance that Ed Chang and Jordan Wilmore are still enrolled at the University of Missouri next year, right? I mean, yes, there is a chance. I refuse to say there is zero chance.
I think I mean, like, and this is total speculation. I want to be clear on that, but like I think there's a good chance Jordan Wilmore will be back. I mean, the staff knew when they brought him in, he was not going to play a lot this year, and I'm sure that was very well communicated to him. I mean, it's not like he had a boatload of other Power 5 offers. So I could see the plan being to kind of develop. I have no idea on Ed Chang. I've never spoken to him. I don't really know anyone who knows him particularly well. It was kind of a head scratcher to us when he was brought onto the roster. Like, it would not stun me if they can find someone, and need to create room if, a spot is made through Ed Chang's position, but who knows?
Well, and I think it does depend on what you can get in the transfer market. But here's the other thing that I think, because we had this argument with Christian Guest 2 years ago, and then with Axel Okongo, and the best argument anybody could make for taking those guys when Missouri took them is, well, so what if they're not good? Just get rid of them after a year. That actually makes it even worse to have taken them, to me, because like Ed Chang literally hasn't played a minute. If he is processed, because first of all, if I'm Ed Chang, there's no way I'm leaving voluntarily. Like, why would I? I'm getting free education. I get to travel. I get to sit on the bench. I don't really have to, there's no pressure on me. So if he leaves, he's probably being encouraged to leave. But if you do that and the guy hasn't even seen the floor, then all you're saying is, oh, this was a huge mistake on our part. Like, even more so than just keeping him and tossing him in blowouts would be.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and there's people that, like you said, kind of the argument against it was like, or the argument for it was basically like, oh, this is a 13th scholarship, who really cares? Well, like if you find a sit out transfer or someone who you can a depth piece now that helps when the team is missing a player or someone like Xavier Pinson's not having a good game. So yeah, I mean, there are definitely I mean, you definitely don't want to see the pattern continue where it's just like they're gonna have a guy at the end of the bench who literally never plays and it's gone after a year every single season.
Literally, that's why you have walk-ons. That's why you have Brooks Ford and Evan Yerkes on the team to hey, you guys are never going to play, but we need guys for practices. We need scrimmage bodies. That's what those players do, and you don't give those guys full scholarships, and it goes back to roster construction. I mean, Konzo said again this week when we talked, or again, I guess it was yesterday we talked to him. I don't know. Every day's the same, but he said, when we have all our pieces, we're as good as anybody, but we have to have all our pieces. Well, but the problem is the way the roster is constructed is when you don't have one piece, now you're going, well, we don't have anybody to step in for him. I mean, what if Ed Chang's spot had been used on a guy that actually is capable of giving you 5 minutes a game if you need it? A guy like a Parker Brown.
Exactly.
Then
right. Yeah, for sure.
Everything looks different. So T-Rise brings up a really good point here. The halftime adjustment of fouling the crap out of the other team needs to be rethought. Look, I appreciate that it is being presented that way as opposed to the halftime adjustment of the officials making bad calls on Missouri, because some of them, I mean, it was very noticeable in that Georgia game. Missouri had 5 fouls the entire first half, and then I think had 7 in the first 6 minutes of the second half. So I think it is difficult on players and on coaches to know, well, how can I play when it changes? I don't think Missouri played drastically different defense at the beginning of the second half than they did in the first half. But also, at some point, it shouldn't take you 7 fouls to go, oh, man, they're calling this tighter. I got to back off.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's kind of it's tough because it does go both ways. In one hand, the inconsistency is tough, and you see this a lot, in college basketball, and it's not just for Missouri, but like both teams, you'll watch a game where there's like 7 total fouls called in the first half, and then each team has 5 fouls in the first 2 minutes of the second. It happens all the time. Very frustrating for a lot of people involved. At the same time, though, I mean, it's very apparent at this point that Cudzo Martin's teams foul a lot. It's just kind of part of, I think it's part of, a lot of, I mean, there are exceptions, but a lot of coaches that really prioritize defense, I think their teams tend to foul a lot because they're just everything is don't give up an easy bucket at all costs. Especially if you're gonna go play physical and tough. I mean, like Pitino's Louisville teams were the same way. He would freak out if anyone gave up a basket, and that led to a lot of fouls. So, I do think that there's a large enough sample size at this point to say Missouri fouls quite a bit. And yeah, I mean, like it has gotten them in trouble a little bit here these past few games for sure. We've seen team opponents, one, shoot very well from the free throw line, but two, outshoot Missouri from the free throw line at least the last couple games. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, that's obviously it's hard to win a game when you're getting outscored at the free throw line.
The frustrating part to me is it's not Jeremiah Tillman. He hasn't fouled out since the Illinois game. It's Drew Smith and Xavier Pinson that can't quit fouling people. I mean, it's these touch fouls 40 feet from the basket that it just. Yeah. But I think you also bring up a good point. Like defensive teams do this. I mean, I watched Mike Anderson's team up close, and I swear Mike Anderson's entire philosophy was foul them every possession. They will not call it every possession. Just dare them to do it. Patino's teams, Bob Huggins' teams, they do the same thing. It's there's no way they're going to call 67 fouls on us, guys. So let's just keep doing it. And look, if they are calling it every possession, then we've got to back off. But we're not going to back off until they do it. Real quick before we let you run, kind of look around the SEC. So a couple of weird things going on. Vanderbilt's only down 3 points to Alabama with 45 seconds left in the first half, and Kentucky is just drilling Tennessee 40-26 with a minute left in the first half.
Yeah, first of all, if Alabama gets upset by Vanderbilt, like that would be insane. Oh. I mean, you're talking a team with one SEC loss and a team with 2 SEC wins. Like, that would be the biggest upset in quite some time, I would think, in league play. Tennessee has not been. They've shown flashes, but they really haven't been that good.
Biggest really disappointment in the league, right?
Against, other than Kentucky, yeah. But since that game where they blitzed Mizzou, they haven't really put it together. That said, Kentucky will probably find a way to lose.
I mean, up 14. Well, God, I was going to make a huge mistake and say up 14 at half, you should win, but I am speaking to the wrong audience to say that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, all right. I wonder if we could get a prop bet. I'll let you go after this, but there was a prop bet going into the Super Bowl that, like, you could bet the Chiefs would trail by at least 9 and win by at least 9 at some point. Could we start to get prop bets on Missouri games, like they will win or lead by at least 10 and trail by at least 10 in the same game?
Yeah, I mean, that would have come through a few times for you this year.
and the odds are probably big enough that you only have to hit it 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I mean, we'll have to look into that. I don't know. I don't know how your sources are in Vegas. If you can figure out if we can get that going or not.
Look, I'm just gonna say, if you're betting prop bets on regular season SEC basketball, like you got way bigger issues than whether you're gonna win or lose the bet. So.
Yeah.
All right, Mitch. Well, we'll let you go, man. Thanks for hanging out. I don't know. Tip off in about 15 minutes.
Sounds good.
All right, Mitchell Forty, we'll have you covered over on PowerMizzou.com all game long. I am right here, back to a one-man show here. Gabe DeArmond with you, leading you up to tip-off at 1 o'clock on ESPN2. And I swear my camera is just moving on its own, guys. This is crazy. There we go. I'm back in the middle of the frame. But 1 p.m. ESPN2. As we talked about, Mizzou coming in on the 3-game losing streak, South Carolina on a 4-game losing streak. Bama and Vandy have gone to halftime now. That is 33-28, Alabama leading. So, which is 33-29, I'm sorry. Alabama is leading Vandy at the half. Kentucky now up 43-28 on Tennessee, which is just, I mean, so that tells me 2 things. First of all, the fear of playing that Kentucky team all year has been, we don't want to be the one team that plays them on the day they figure it out, right? Well, Kentucky has figured it out a little bit in that the Wildcats are 6 of 9 from 3-point range, including Davin Mintz is 5 for 5 from 3-point range. They have one guy who's hit all 5 of his threes, and that's basically the difference. They're 16 of 27 from the floor against a team that we saw play defense and was convinced it was going to the Final Four in Tennessee. But, yeah, I mean, Tennessee kind of falling apart. So I want to real quick take a look at the league standings as we are coming into today. And let's call those up real quick in the SEC. Obviously, again, Alabama maybe can win the league today. They can't technically. So if Alabama wins today, it is 13-1. Arkansas is not going to have – they don't play today. They got called off against Texas A&M, who may never play another game. LSU, I believe, plays later in the night. They play at 3 o'clock, actually. They are going to play host to Auburn. So those are the two teams with 4 losses. If Kentucky beats Tennessee, those are the only – then LSU and Arkansas are the only ones who could even mathematically catch Alabama. They're not going to. But Tennessee would fall to 8-6. You know, Florida's sitting there at 6-5. They've got games to make up. Ole Miss is 7-6. Kentucky would be 7-7. Missouri's going to be either 6-7 or 7-6. I mean, there's just a whole mess of teams. Basically, the top 3 teams in the league standings at the end of the year should be Alabama, Arkansas, and LSU. They have a leg up on everybody else. Alabama certainly is going to be in that top 4. Arkansas and LSU should be. But then after that, I mean, Tennessee, Florida, Ole Miss, Missouri, Kentucky, and even Georgia, and honestly, even Auburn and Mississippi State, those teams are all within like 2 games of each other. None of them are completely out of it. You're going down to 11th place in the league before you get to South Carolina, A&M, and Vandy, which are likely out of that discussion. But I mean, Missouri's playing for a lot today. Not only standings and seeding and all that, but just get this season back on track, you know. And what I want to do now is just give you guys a chance to listen to Konzo yesterday. We got about 10, 12 minutes left in the show. So I want to play Konzo's interview from yesterday for you guys, and then we'll come back and finish up. Yeah, Konzo, I just saw something where you had said this morning that Jeremiah's back with the team. You expect him to play tomorrow. Is that right?
Man, Gabe, you're not going to ask how I'm doing first? Man.
Hey, how you doing? I heard Jeremiah's back.
No, yeah, he's back. He's back. Yeah. Yeah, we expect him to play, yeah.
Dave, man.
Gonzo, when some of these second half trends, does it seem like the team is playing a little too casual with leads, or is it the opposite? They get a little tight. It seems like it should be one or the other.
I think it's more. I think it is a combination of both. And I wouldn't necessarily say casually playing loose, like because I think they still have an edge. But I think it's a case of this is for each individual guy is different. This is a shot I would take, but I wouldn't take it in the first half. I wouldn't take it in a critical situation. But I'll take it because this is comfort right now. Or instead of a sprint back when the game is close on defense and transition, kind of a jog, and all of a sudden it leads to a basket and it spirals. So it's just a lot of little things. And we've watched, 5 games, and I won't necessarily give you guys the 5 games now. We were drinking coffee, I would give it to you, but I'm going to make the competition work for those 5 games. But where there's a theme in which stuff happens, and we have to, we've watched film with the guys, they understand it, but the simple thing of it all is just how we got the lead, let's maintain it, let's finish the game that way. And I think part of it, too, from a staff standpoint, I think maybe a guy here playing a minute too long. Not that he's lacking that, but a minute too long, exhausted, that extra drive when he was healthy and energized. He drove strong now. He passed up a shot, a pull-up, off-balance shot, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of little things like that I think certainly can be corrected. And probably, fresh legs here and there, I think that'll help.
Blair?
Gonzo, what did you miss most without Tillman in? I mean, there's some obvious things, but distribution of minutes, what do you think you missed most?
Well, I think the one thing that I've always said about our team, we're as good as anyone when we have all our parts. I mean, Jeremiah's obviously having his best year in his senior year because he's grown, on and off the court, the wisdom and understanding all those things. You're talking about a physical low post presence where really there was I think in the last maybe before it's last 6, 7, 8 games we're going inside to, and that was a focal point of what we were doing. So you're getting major production there. So when you don't have that presence to go inside, and again, I'll still say those 2 games I felt like we should have won, Arkansas and Georgia. We didn't do what we needed to do. But when you lose that level of presence and experience, now all of a sudden, a guy that was playing maybe 5 to 7 minutes, or if that, now I'm playing 20-plus minutes. And I think in his loss, I'm hopeful that Kobe, even though Kobe's a starter, but his role changed in both games, and even Parker. Both those guys played major parts, even though we came up short. But I think both of those guys grew from those games. So I think down the road, I think that'll help us. But just, man, when you have that level of presence, you're talking about a guy that's an all-league guy, certainly a first-team guy, the way he's playing, to lose that. But not so much as his absence, but losing a family member. So that affects you in the locker room. And again, not to take nothing away from the losing, but this is one of my guys. This is my teammate. This is not a guy that I just heard about something. This is a guy, and plus, his heart. So that affects me as well because it's my guy. But we still got to go. We try to do to win this game for him. But at the end of the day, you're still playing against an opponent. But I just think when in those critical situations without him, who's getting the ball? I can press up a little more on Drew Smith and X Pinson because you don't have a Tim. So somebody else make a play. I mean, that's what I would do. You lose a key guy. That's just human nature. That's just scouting, reporting, game planning. So now when it gets critical, you're putting some guys in positions that they haven't been in before to make plays. And not that they're doing a poor job, they just hadn't been in them.
Eric?
Konzo, when did you come to the decision that Jeremiah wanted to come back, or was that purely on him, and just how are you making sure he's adjusting to being back with the team right after such a serious thing as losing a family member?
Oh, that's solely him. Again, you're talking sport and you're talking family. That take precedent over anything we're doing here, and that's his time. It's not that. I just happen to be the figurehead in the program as a head coach, but it's not my decision. That's a family decision, and you proceed how you see best fit. Period. And I'm here to assist any way you need.
Colin?
Konza, you mentioned substitution patterns and minutes a minute ago. I was just curious. It looks like, at least in the first half, you're going to the bench maybe a little sooner and maybe a little deeper than you had earlier in the season. Is that just the wear and tear of a season on guys?
All right, so there was more to that, but they've posted the starting lineups at this point, and I just put them up during Konzo's interview there, and I'm going to put them back up here because I do think it is important to talk about. Jeremiah Tillman not in the starting lineup for Missouri. He is available. Konzo told us he's available to play, but Missouri instead going with Mitchell Smith in the starting lineup. I assume that's just to let Jeremiah kind of work his way back in. I mean, it's a little bit weird to me because if he's back, if he's ready to go, then he's one of your 5 guys. It seems weird to me to not start him, but again, it may be as simple like T-Rise is saying, just let him kind of work his way in a little bit. I don't know. It's a little bit strange to me, if we're being honest about things. That he would be there and not. So I'll be interested to see how many minutes Tillman plays. You also notice in the starting lineup for South Carolina that not only is Cuisinart not there, but Justin Minaya is not there. Now, I don't know the status of Minaya for this game. I still haven't seen anything officially, but he is not listed among the players who are starting this game. Missouri going with Pinson, Mark Smith, Drew Smith, Kobe Brown. They start pretty much every game. The change is obviously Mitchell Smith in for Tillman. Also, Javon Pickett has started at times, but the last couple games we've been back to Javon Pickett in the starting lineup over Mark Smith. And David says it seems reasonable in a sense. It may be to assume teammates to not put everything back on him from the jump. And that, yeah, I mean, there are reasons that it makes sense. Again, he's been gone a couple games. It's not completely, senseless that Jeremiah isn't starting this game. It does surprise me a little bit. In that, again, if he's there, like I'm surprised he's not playing. You can see the seventh Woods starting for South Carolina, AJ Lawson, Keyshawn Bryant. There's their starting lineup. The three Smiths, Pinson, and Kobe Brown. Now, I would, if we don't see Tillman by the 15-minute mark, if we don't see him at the latest coming out of the first TV timeout, that will make me wonder exactly, what the situation is going to be. One of the things about this year is nobody's traveling to cover these games from Missouri. So we don't – I mean, it is, I guess, possible that Tillman isn't there and not playing. I don't think that would be the case. Konzo said yesterday he was here. He was going to travel. They expect him to play, so I'm sure he is. But I'm just saying, if for some reason it was a situation where he's not there, this would be – like, we wouldn't know because nobody's traveling, so nobody can sit there in the arena and, like Mitchell Forty did a couple games ago, and say, hey, hang on, Jeremiah's not here. Where is he? But I would assume that somebody would have said something if Jeremiah wasn't playing. So I would certainly expect him to play, but he is not starting for Missouri in this game. So we'll see what happens as we go along in this one. Once again, Mitchell Forty will have you covered on Power Mizzou, on the message boards throughout the game. You guys can talk about it. We got the game thread, everything there. If you subscribe, go talk about it at Power Mizzou all throughout. Tip-off coming up in about a minute and a half here on ESPN2. After the game, I will jump on Konzo Martin's Zoom call. I will record that. Then I will start the post-game show. Probably, I'm guessing 3:20 is the target time to start. Could be a few minutes before, could be a few minutes after. So hit the subscribe button. That will allow you to get alerts when we go live, so you won't have to just sit here and wait for us. You'll get an alert when I go live. You can tap it immediately, join the post-game show. We'll play Konzo's press conference after the game. We'll talk all about it. We'll take your calls, and we'll see what happens. Missouri looking to break a 3-game losing streak in a game it absolutely needs to win. As T-Rise says, let's get this one. So Missouri and South Carolina coming up from the other Columbia. Hope you enjoy the game. We'll see you here after. Thanks for watching.